After all these years of dealing with the Big Ten East and having to play Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, finally no more divisions for Maryland. So guess what? They don't have to play Michigan or Ohio State, but instead they get to play Oregon and they get to play USC. So it's still going to be a difficult schedule for Maryland. They also play Iowa this season. Before we go game by game with predictions, just some thoughts on this team. So Maryland is a team that they're going to be pretty good. I feel like it's the same story of this team every year. They've gotten to a point where they're consistently a bowl team. They're a pretty good team, but are they going to be able to get over the hump? I don't really see that happening this year. You look at the offense, quarterback position going to be a big battle. If MJ Morris winds up winning that, I think you get a decent quarterback, but it's going to be a drop-off from Talia Tagovailoa from last season. They've got pretty good weapons at the skill positions. Offensive line, though, is a concern for me. And then on the defensive side, I think they're going to be decent. The cornerback position is a concern. So I don't think this team is going to be, they're going to have their holes, but they've got a decent amount of talent. So it should be a pretty good team again, like they have been the last few years. Vegas, they've got the over-under win total at 7.5. So 6-6, 7-5, the most likely scenarios. I tend to agree with that. I think that's pretty fair. You look at the non-conference, they do play Virginia, but that's really going to be their toughest, or really only tough game in the non-conference. So let's go game by game. We'll start with UConn. UConn, of course, has been getting better, so this is not a game where Maryland probably just goes in there and blows them out, but I think Maryland is still ahead of where UConn is. I think they'll win this game. You've got Michigan State the next week on September 7th. Michigan State's going to be an interesting team with a new coaching staff and some roster turnover there. I think it's going to take them a little bit of time. I think Michigan State long-term is going to be in good shape, but this year I think they're going to struggle. I think Maryland will be the better team, and I got to go with the Terrapins here in this one. Next game is at Virginia. Now, this is one that I've really struggled with. I've gone back and forth on this prediction because I think Virginia is headed in the right direction. I think they're going to be decent this year, and they're playing at home. So I think they've got a real shot. But again, I just don't quite think they are where Maryland is. I think Maryland is the better team here. I think they'll win, but could be a pretty close game here. So I'm going to go with a win over Virginia and then a win over Villanova. So 4-0 before playing on the road at Indiana. I've talked about this for really all offseason. I think Indiana is going to be a surprise team this year, and that doesn't mean they're going to win the Big Ten, but I think they're going to be better than people think. When you look at I love the new coaching staff there. I love the transfer quarterback they brought in and all the other transfers that came in from James Madison. So I think this is going to be a tough game for Maryland. I'm going to go with Maryland, though. Again, I just don't think Indiana's there yet. I think Maryland gets a win here in this one. And then you've got Northwestern next. This is going to be a tough, hard-fought game. I think Northwestern's going to be pretty solid this year. I think they'll be about as good as they were last year, maybe even a little bit better. Quarterback position is definitely going to be interesting there at Northwestern to see who wins that job. But again, it's just a veteran Northwestern team, well coached. I think they're able to pull off this win. So I've got them pulling off perhaps a slight upset here. And really, it comes down to grouping these games together. And I look at Indiana and Northwestern. I think Maryland probably wins one of those games. They probably lose one. So you could easily flip this around and say they're going to lose on the road at Indiana and then beat Northwestern. And that would be a fine prediction as well. And again, you could even throw Virginia into that mix and say that, look, they're going to go 2-1 in those 3 games. But I've got to go with I'm going to go with Northwestern here in this one. Either way, I think Maryland will be 5-1 before they get to this stretch. That's going to be really tough. It's a tough stretch. They've got USC next. USC offense that's going to be able to score a lot of points. A defense that we expect to be improved. I think USC's the better team here. Going to go Trojans. And then it's Minnesota next on the 26th of October. I think Minnesota's the receivers, especially Daniel Jackson, could cause some problems for this Maryland secondary. Minnesota, we know what they like to do. They like to run the football as well and control that clock, and they'll be playing at home. I think this is a big opportunity for Minnesota to get a win. I got to go with Minnesota here in this one. And then it doesn't get any easier. They play Oregon next on the road. I don't see Maryland really having much of a chance in this one. Oregon's going to be really, really good going Ducks in this game. And next you've got Rutgers on November 16th. This will be an interesting game here. Rutgers going to have a very good defense. I think we know that. Offense, though, I still think that they're going to struggle on that side of the ball. And I think Maryland's offense will be good enough that they can score some on this Rutgers defense. Their defense shouldn't have to do too much again against a Rutgers offense that will struggle. Maryland at home gets the win here and gets to a bowl game. And then they'll play Iowa next. Similar story to the Rutgers game, but I think Iowa is going to have a little bit more on offense this year. and I think their defense will be a little bit better than Rutgers as well. So it's just a better version of Rutgers, and it's a good enough version to beat Maryland. So they lose this game and then close things out with Penn State on the road. Kind of similar to Oregon here. It's just a really good team. They're playing them on the road. Don't see Maryland winning this game. So I've got them at 6-6. Seems kind of low, but again, when you look at these games, I feel pretty confident that they're going to lose to USC, Oregon, Iowa, and Penn State. So you could maybe jump them up to 8-4, but with these other games, with Rutgers, Minnesota, Northwestern, Indiana, Virginia, even Michigan State, it's hard to see them winning all those games. So yeah, 7-5 I think is definitely a possibility, but I'm going to go with 6-6. Either way, I do think they get to a bowl game and they have a decent season here in the new Big Ten.